India today has accessed some very last shocking footage of that crash of the Mi-17V5 in Kunnur in Tamil Nadu on the 8th of December. These are just the last moments which have been captured in this video. And if you look at that video, what you'll notice is that the chopper seems to be steady for some time, but then it goes on to crash. Here's more.
என்னாச்சு உடைஞ்சிச்சா? ஆமா. குட்டி போயிட்டு இருந்தோம். அப்புறம் அந்த காட்டேரி வர்ற இடத்துல ஃபோட்டோஸ் எடுத்துகிட்டு இருந்தோம். ஃபோட்டோஸ் எடுத்துகிட்டு இருக்கும்போது சரி ஃபோட்டோ எடுத்து முடிச்சுட்டு வரும்போது நம்ம ஜோபால் ஃப்ரெண்டு வந்து இந்த வீடியோ எடுத்தார். நாங்கள் நடந்து வரதை வீடியோ எடுத்தார். வீடியோ எடுத்தோடனே ஒரு ஹெலிகாப்டரோட சவுண்டு கேட்டது. சவுண்டு கேட்டோன்னே இவர் வந்து அந்த ஹெலிகாப்டர் உடனே ஷூட் பண்ணுற மேலே ஷூட் பண்ண ஒரு 2 செகண்டில் அது போய் கிராஷ் ஆகுதுங்க. போய் ஒரு மரத்தில் அடித்து கீழே விழுகிற சவுண்டு எங்களுக்கு நல்லா கேட்டதுங்க.
So NASA says that on that day they were at the spot as a kind of like just to look around, and that's when they saw it was Joe Paul who saw that helicopter going up, and he actually shot it for a couple of seconds, and within a split second what they heard was that a crash and the helicopter falling down. அந்த டைமில் உங்களுடைய சென்ஸ் எப்படி சார் இருந்துச்சு ஃபீலிங்?
சார் ஆக்சுவலாக வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா அந்த சவுண்டு டிஃப்ரெண்ட்டாக இருந்தது. ஹெலிகாப்டரோட சவுண்டு மாதிரி இல்லாமல் ஒரு சவுண்டு வித்தியாசமாக இருந்ததுனால தான் நாங்கள் டக்குனு என்னன்னா இங்கே ஹெலிகாப்டர் நாங்கள் ஊட்டியில் ஹெலிகாப்டர் வர நாங்கள் பார்த்ததே இல்லை. அதனால சும்மா எதார்த்தமாக கேஷுவலாக எடுத்தோம். அது அந்த க்ளவுட்ஸ்க்கு அப்படியே போகுது. போய் ஒரு 5 செகண்டுக்குள்ளே பார்த்தீங்கன்னா டமால் சவுண்டு கேட்டுச்சு. அப்போ அதுக்கப்புறம் சவுண்டே இல்லை. அப்போ என் ஃப்ரெண்டு ஓடி வந்து உடஞ்சிருச்சான்னு கேட்டார். ஆமாம் அப்படின்னா அப்புறம் நாங்கள் அதை முடிச்சு கொஞ்ச நேரம் நாங்கள் மேலே வந்துட்டோம்.
So he says that particular noise over there was something completely different, and that's the reason they were trying to find out what exactly happened. Within a split second, they heard a noise that is entirely different, and that's when NASA asked whether it crashed, and that's what happened. அதுக்கப்புறம் எப்படி சார் எப்படி போனீங்களா? மேலே போனீங்களா? அதாவது பார்க்கறதுக்கு
மேலே போனாங்க. ஒவ்வொரு பெண்டாக பார்த்துட்டு போனோம். எந்த இடத்துல இந்த சம்பவம் நடந்து விழுந்த இடத்த பார்க்கலாம்னு சொல்லி ஒவ்வொரு ஏரியாவாக போயிட்டு இருந்தோம். ஒவ்வொரு பெண்டாக போய் பார்க்கும்போது எங்களுக்கு அவ்வளோதான் தெரியலைங்க. அதுக்கப்புறம் பார்த்தீங்கன்னா அங்கேருந்து ஆம்புலன்ஸு, போலீஸ் ஜீப்புங்க, ஃபயர் சர்வீஸு இவங்கெல்லாம் ஃபுல்லாக வந்துட்டே இருந்ததுன்னா அந்த வண்டியை ஃபாலோ பண்ணி கீழே அவங்க வந்தாங்க. வந்தோடனே அவங்கள்ட்ட போய் சொன்னோம் இந்த மாதிரி ஒரு ஃபயர் ஆயிருக்கு. அப்போ என்னன்னு கேட்டோன்னா அவங்க சொன்னாங்க இந்த மாதிரி ஃபயர் ஆயிருச்சு அப்படின்னு சொன்னாங்க.
So like they also tried to reach the spot where there was an accident, and they tried going through several bends, and finally almost after 20 minutes they actually met first responders over there, and they were the ones who actually told them what exactly happened, and that's the time they decided that this is a very crucial piece of evidence, and that's the reason they voluntarily handed over this evidence to the officials. In the visual first time பார்க்கும்போது அதுல இந்த ஜெனரல் பிபின் ராவத் இருந்தா தெரிஞ்சிச்சா? டிவில பார்க்கும்போது எப்படி இருந்தது?
இல்லை சார், யாருமே நாங்கள் நினைச்சோம் ஒரே ஒரு சிங்கிள் பர்சன் தான். ஏதோ வண்டி போயிட்டு இருக்கு, ஏதோ ஒரு ஹெலிகாப்டர். ஃபர்ஸ்ட் மனசுல ஏதோ என்ன இங்கே சுற்றுலா அந்த மாதிரி இருக்கு இல்லைங்க, அந்த மாதிரி ஏதோ பீப்புள்ஸ் கூட்டிட்டு போறாங்களா அந்த மாதிரி ஃபீல் பண்ணோம். அது ஏன்னா ஒரு செகண்ட் தானே, ஒரு 2 செகண்ட்ல அதை பார்த்தோம், அவ்வளோதான். ஆனால் அந்த ஹெலிகாப்டர் போனோன்னா அந்த பனிமூட்டம் நல்லா தெரிஞ்சு சார். நல்ல பனிமூட்டம் அதில் அப்படியே மறைஞ்சிருச்சு.
So like he claims that like they didn't even know who were inside that particular helicopter at that point. They thought that there could be one person maximum, and not just that. They say that like within a split second that helicopter actually vanished into the mist.
The frightful last moments of the ill-fated chopper carrying Chief of Defence Staff General Bipin Rawat, wife Madhulika and 12 defence personnel. Caught on camera by a group of unsuspecting youngsters on ground in the Nilgiris mountains. The chopper can be seen and heard roaring overhead, with no apparent wobble and maintaining what looks like a steady course, but dangerously close to the foliage on the ground, navigating through foggy and misty skies, with apparent bad weather and low cloud cover. The youngsters can be seen stopping on the path, wondering what's going on. The video then catches a loud booming explosion sound in the background as the chopper, now not on camera, crashes into the terrain. Taken aback, the group of young residents are seen exclaiming, "Has it crashed?" The video then abruptly stops. but not before giving some important insight into what exactly went wrong seconds before the fateful mishap. Was it the bad, blinding, misty weather, which often grips these parts of Nilgiris at this time of the season?
The helicopter was definitely flying low because this area, you could see that the entire back area is completely covered in mist. Around 11 o'clock, this whole spot will be covered by mist. And generally, any kind of helicopter sortie that starts from Sulur and coming to Wellington base, they actually, from that crash point, either take a left or a right. On the left side, there is a hill that is almost twice the size of this one, which is completely covered by mist right now. And that's the only way they can go, and on the right side. But generally, they prefer the left side. And as we speak, you could see the mist is setting in over there. And this is the most kind of unfortunate part.
Did the weather cause cockpit disorientation? Or was it some sudden technical snag? The black box retrieved from the wreckage holds important clues. Bureau Report, India Today.
My colleague Pramod Madhav is now joining me live from Kunnur in Tamil Nadu. Pramod, we saw that report where you spoke to the man who shot that video, that very viral video, which could be critical as far as the investigation goes. What can you tell us about the investigation? The Indian Air Force, of course, has said that we shouldn't be speculating about what is in that investigation at the moment or concluding at the moment. But what is the process that is to be followed, Pramod?
Absolutely. There is a certain principles that has to be followed in this investigation. The tri-service investigation has already started, and the Tamil Nadu police on its own has also provided a warning saying that no unnecessary rumors should be flouted, and the same thing has been requested by the Indian Air Force as well. Not just that, these two people, Nasser and Joe Paul, they actually heard unnecessary rumors about this particular crash, and that's the reason they were the ones who approached the officials and they handed over that particular video. And as you might know, the data recorder has already been recovered as well, and based on it, there will be several information regarding the altitudes, height, exact height that was maintained, the cockpit in the conversations, and the conversation between the base and the helicopter, and all this will be actually analyzed, and only after that a detailed report will be submitted.
Right. Pramod there, of course, telling us about the process of this investigation, this tri-services inquiry, which is to be conducted in order to get to the bottom of what exactly happened. The reasons are what everyone wants to know. Why exactly did this accident take place as the nation mourns the loss of 13 of our brave hearts who lost their lives in that chopper crash that took place on the 8th of December. Now, as possible reasons of this crash are being speculated, the Indian Air Force has issued a statement stating that they've constituted a tri-services court of inquiry to investigate the cause of the tragic helicopter accident. And the statement further goes on to say that the inquiry will be completed expeditiously and the facts will be brought out. But the Indian Air Force have asked for restraint to be maintained and said that uninformed speculation should be avoided in order to respect the dignity of the deceased. This is what the Indian Air Force has in fact said as far as the ongoing investigation is concerned. My colleague Shiv Arur is now joining me live on this. Shiv, the Indian Air Force, of course, has said that we shouldn't be engaging in any kind of uninformed speculation because that in itself is causing a lot of agony for the family members, the loved ones left behind by the 13 deceased persons. But as far as the investigation goes, Shiv, in which way is it going to go? How will this investigation be conducted? Shiv, for the benefit of our viewers, if you could explain how a tri-services court of inquiry would be conducted. I beg your pardon.
Pallavi, the tri-service inquiry led by Air Marshal Manvendra Singh, who's Chief of the Indian Air Force's Training Command in Bengaluru, has already begun. It's a tri-services inquiry, as you rightly said, which basically means that the members of the inquiry will be representatives from the Army, Navy and the Air Force. It's led by an Air Force Air Marshal because this was an Indian Air Force helicopter that had crashed, this Mi-17V5. I can tell you that gathering of material evidence from the crash site, the questioning of locals, the questioning of persons at the Sulur Air Base, the gathering of the log books, the paperwork, all of it has already begun. So it's a very, very meticulous process. A court of inquiry goes into literally every last nut and bolt, of the helicopter, its previous flights, its maintenance records, any earlier incidents, the checklist of safety procedures that were carried out for this particular flight, the people on board, the records of the pilots, the cockpit voice recorder, the black box which were recovered yesterday. Every bit of data from that will be gleaned. The voices of the pilots, what their situational awareness was, what they were intending to do, the videos from the locals. All of these things, Pallavi, will form, the beginnings of a bigger picture that the Court of Inquiry will try to paint expeditiously. It's interesting that the Indian Air Force has said expeditiously because of the enormity and the gravity of what has happened. The country's top military chief has perished along with his wife and 11 others in this crash. Not that other courts of inquiry are not expeditious, but this one, given the huge, enormous implications for the security establishment on VIP travel, etc. Therefore, this is going to be an even more pressured court of inquiry that's going to be conducted. And that's the reason also why, Polami, that the Indian Air Force has felt compelled to ask people for restraint and to not make any uninformed speculation about the cause of the crash. There have been some stray comments from opposition members, ruling party members as well, Subramanian Swamy, Sanjay Raut, a few others, who've not said anything explicit, but hinted at certain things that, that could be uncomfortable at this point of time. Of course, there's a lot of propaganda, from our friendly neighbors, Pakistan and China, over the cause of the crash, being fueled by certain inimical elements here in India as well. So I think the Indian Air Force is trying to put an end to all of that speculation and tell people that we are a great institution, we are a fine professional institution, and we owe it to the people of India, we owe it to the family of General Rawat and all of the others on board that helicopter to find the truth as quickly as possible. And that's what this message is really about.
Absolutely. We owe it to the families of the deceased to get to the bottom of this entire accident. And very critically, as you pointed out as well, Shiv, the Indian Air Force has said that this inquiry, this court of inquiry, the Tri-Services Court of Inquiry, will be conducted expeditiously in order to get to the bottom of the causes of this accident, what caused this accident. Retired Group Captain Amitabh Ranjan is live with me, sir. Sir, the Indian Air Force, I will take from what Shiv just said. The Indian Air Force has, of course, put out a tweet and said that they will be conducting a Tri-Services Court of Inquiry, which will be done expeditiously, and any sort of uninformed speculation ahead of that will only, in a sense, cause more agony to the families and the loved ones of the deceased and is against the dignity of the deceased as well, sir.
Okay, as you brought out very correctly, the Indian Air Force has put up a tweet saying no speculation should be made because, believe you me, speculation and the propaganda being put up by some vested parties is what is called as psychological warfare. And this is what is happening as of now, whether intentionally, unintentionally, people forwarding those messages and those videos which depict and some tweets which talk of professionalism of our armed forces and all. It is incorrect because this puts down the armed forces who are doing a wonderful job, number one, and the nation who relies on them, the people start thinking otherwise. So this is what psychological warfare is all about. The war is won without firing a bullet. So we all the viewers, we have to educate ourselves and others around us that we don't succumb to such false propaganda being propagated by some vested parties or uninformed people. Secondly, as you talked about the Code of Inquiry, the Code of Inquiry basically covers three aspects. That is what has happened that we already know, that a crash has taken place. How did it take place? That is the next aspect. Then comes why did it take place? That is the cause, the factors leading to how did it happen. And last and not the least comes what measures will be taken by the Indian Air Force and the defense establishment to avoid such mishaps in the future. So basically, four questions the Code of Inquiry puts in front of itself and starts finding the solution. And these answers, once they are found, that is the finalization of Code of Inquiry. And as soon as it is finalized, it will be made available to the Indian Air Force, which will subsequently give out the findings to the Ministry of Defense, and thereafter the contents as considered suitable will be given out for public consumption.
Group Captain Amitabh Ranjan, you're actually stating and listing out some very critical questions that the Tri-Services Court of Inquiry has to in fact answer. Some very crucial questions, not just about the cause of the accident and what led to this accident, but how is the military establishment going to ensure that such mishaps, such tragic accidents don't take place in the future. In fact, retired Group Captain Amitabh Ranjan earlier spoke to my colleague Ashraf Vani on the probable causes of this accident in Tamil Nadu on the 8th of December. Listen in.
After the helicopter crash in Kannur of Tamil Nadu, in which unfortunately CDS, Chief Defence Staff of the country, as well as the 13 other members lost their lives, there are so many queries going on across the country and world, in fact, that what was the reason for the crash. We are here in the Srinagar with one of the senior most pilots, not only of Indian Air Force, but currently also flying the helicopters. In fact, he has flown the Mi-17 helicopter, which got crashed for years together in his earlier service. We would like to know from him only that what could be the reason for the crash. Amitabhji, welcome to the India Today. We just basically, you being one of the senior most pilots in the country, you have participated in the Kargil war. First of all, we know in your first assess, what you think, what could be the reason for the crash of Mi-17 in Tamil Nadu?
The first reason which comes to my mind straight away is some kind of emergency being mitigating factor, leading the helicopter to enter a weather phenomena from where they were unable to recover the helicopter, landing into a fatal crash. This is my first assessment of the situation.
And also, you being the one of the pilots, is the Mi-17 only the safest helicopter in the world? That is why this helicopter is still being used by the country for the movement of the VIPs and other operations?
This helicopter in its class, it's the best. There are some other helicopters of this class, one of them being Augusta Westland, and I had the privilege of flying that helicopter with the Royal Air Force. So I can vouch for it. This helicopter is at least 50% better than the Augusta Westland, which we have, because it has got more features. And just for the information of all the viewers, even though this helicopter was made in Russia by Kazan Helicopters, it was designed by Indian Air Force test pilots in India itself. Everything in this helicopter has been specifically designed by Indian Air Force test pilots to meet the requirements of our country, our armed forces, our Air Force. So this is the best which we can imagine. And since it has been designed also by us looking to our specific requirements, there is, in my mind, there is nothing better than this helicopter in this class as of date.